And we're live here on Book Chat Live. And this week we have the amazing Tim Watson, who I met down on the South Coast at a conference recently. So welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here, Tim.
Well, normally I give some sort of description of the guest, but I think in this particular case, the first book may well be quite an explanation of who you are and what you do. So shall we go into the first book?
Let's go for it. Absolutely.
Right. Traction by Gino Wickman. So this book sounds like it kind of changed your life a little bit. Not because you wrote it, but because you read it. Is that a good assessment?
Yeah, it did. It did change my life. It's changed many people's lives as well. Absolutely. So, so there's the book.
Yeah.
It's just if anyone wants to know what it looks like, I'm sure you can find it.
It's on that. It's in your background, actually.
It's in my background as well. Yeah, you can never have too much traction.
Yeah.
So, traction. It's all about helping entrepreneurs get more of what they want from their business.
Yeah.
And it focuses on three things we call vision, traction, healthy. So vision means from the standpoint of getting everybody on the same page with where you're going and your plan to get there. Traction means creating a discipline of accountability so that everybody is executing on every part of that vision. And healthy means creating functional, cohesive teams that work well together, that enjoy working with each other. So that's as you say, no introduction needed, because that's basically what I do. I work with leadership teams, helping them get clear on their vision, getting traction on that vision, and getting healthy teams. And what we see is, as goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of the organization. You end up in a place where everybody's clear on the vision, everybody's working with discipline and accountability, working with people they enjoy working with. And the book details a simple set of practical tools that help you get vision, traction, healthy. So it's basically like a handbook for how to run a great entrepreneurial business. Probably.
So how did you encounter this book in the first place? Was it somebody recommended it to you? Or was it that you were already kind of in that space, but you were looking for, because you're like a registered person, what this scheme, the EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, sounds like it's based on this book. So how did you first, did you just pick it up at a bookstore somewhere? How did this book that's changed your life come into your life?
No, nice question. So I was, founded a business, exited, founded another business, working as a marketing consultant. One of my good clients in America read the book Traction in 2015, and I was kind of the right-hand man of the business at that point in America. Yeah. And he said, "Hey, Tim, you've got to read Traction, see what you think." And I read it. I went, "Oh, this works. I can see how this can work. These I like these tools." And he said, "Great, let's implement them into the business." So we did. We implemented the EOS tools into the business with some professional help, I have to say. And they work really well. That business grew like 54% to $10 million over 3 years. And EOS tools in Traction were a significant part of that story. So I started using those tools with other businesses I was involved in, and it helped them too. And they went, "We love this. This is great." And I got to the point where I was like, "Do you know what? I should just put all my energy into helping people run a better business and implement EOS tools." Because until I came across it in 2015 by way of this recommendation, I'd never heard of it, but I had seen the struggles that businesses have, the frustrations of business leaders, like, people who don't seem to get it. They've told them 1,000 times and they still don't get it. They're working really hard. They're not getting enough profit out of the business. They're finding the business is controlling them rather than they're controlling the business. So, entrepreneurs go into business for freedom, and then they find they're a slave to the thing that they created, and they don't get any freedom at all. So, these tools actually help solve that problem, because most businesses, all businesses have vision. So the first part of vision, traction, healthy. But what happens is a lot of businesses, they have plenty of vision, but but they don't really get traction on it. So they're just hallucinating. They've got this vision, but they never manage to get there because they just don't have the traction part.
Okay, so what was the thing about this book that really is it definite guidance it gives you, or like what is the USP, the unique selling point of this book? I mean, we're going to talk about 5 books today.
Absolutely. No, I like the question because it's a really great question, because it was one of the things that hit me was reading the book was like, this is good, simple, practical stuff. This is stuff which is basically a handbook, a guidebook for how to execute in your business, how to get vision, traction, healthy. Whereas you read a lot of fantastic books and they're highly kind of like theoretical, divorced from the real world. And you go, okay, I like what it's saying. It's inspiring me. But how do I connect that to my world and my business? And you're kind of like struggling, trying to work out how you're going to take these theories and these ideas and implement them into your business. Where with traction, it explains exactly how you implement it by way of the tools within traction. So it's like you need to do, this, this, and this, and you do it using this, this, and this tool in this way. So it really is a very useful framework. So it's what some people might call a business operating system. It's not software, it's not computer technology, it's simple tools. It's about harmonizing and orchestrating all of the human energy in the business. So it works best with any business with people in it, because it's about getting the most out of those people, get them all to row in the same direction, on that same vision, on that same journey.
Is it intended for like solopreneur people on their own, or is it for small companies or big companies? Is it kind of like
you must be experienced at this because you ask really good questions.
Oh, thank you for the flattery, but yeah.
I can dish out more.
Yeah.
No, it's the kind of the sweet spot is businesses between 10 people and 250 people.
Oh, okay.
Kind of that said, some people start implementing EOS with like 6 people. And I certainly know of businesses which are like 2,000 people and they're running on EOS very satisfactorily and it works for them. So, but mostly the EOS clients are 10 to 250 people, the people who use the tools in traction.
So it's almost kind of like it's a blueprint for an organization structure for companies. That kind of way of thinking about it.
It basically focuses on strengthening the 6 key components of a business.
Yeah.
So the 6 key components are the vision component, the people component, the data component, the issues component, the process component, and the traction component.
Yeah.
And it's all about getting strong on those 6 key components in the business. And that came about by a discovery from the author of the book that like every entrepreneurial leader is wrestling with 136 problems simultaneously.
Yeah.
And it turns out those problems are really symptoms of a true root cause, which is a weakness in the 6 key components. So the tools are there to get strength in those 6 key components.
Okay. Well, shall we move on to the next book, which is also by Gino? Is it Gino? Is Gino a man or a woman? Or no?
It's a guy, Gino Wickman.
Okay. Well, I shouldn't be presumptive about sex anymore, I guess. Let's go on to his next book. How to Be a Great Boss by Gino Wickman. So, why did you have this?
It's by Gino Wickman and Rene Bohr as well. Did I miss off the second author?
It may be me that missed it off. I don't know.
Okay.
Say it's me and that you gave me the right thing.
All right. There you go. Yep. There's the book, How to Be a Great Boss by Gino Wickman and Rene Bohr. It's also kind of orientated around EOS.
Yeah.
And it's, can you guess, it's How to Be a Great Boss. And it's it basically says, that you need 2 things to be a great boss. You need to be you need to really care for your people, and you need to want to be a great boss. You need to be willing to put in the energy and effort, because it's, most people get elevated into the position of being a team leader or a boss or whatever with, like, hey, you're really good at being a whatever salesperson. Why don't you become a sales manager? Or you're really great at, developing gizmos, be the gizmo team leader. And, then they don't have any additional training or help with that. They're just kind of like slotted into it. You work it out for yourself. Whereas, how to be a great boss is the nuts and bolts of how to be a great boss. And there's a great quote out there, which is, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So you have to genuinely care for your people to be a great boss. And if you're not interested in caring for your people, and if you don't want to be great at it, don't be a boss. Do something else.
So is this a book aimed at somebody who has recently become like a team leader, as you say, chief widget team leader, and they're the best team widget and they've had no training? Or is it for a company for training people? I mean, who's this book intended for?
It's aimed at people who are in the position of being a team leader or a boss of some sort. So it's aimed at them, and they can read it and they can take from it. So it's got lots of practical, like Traction, it's got lots of practical tools and assistance and things you can do. Let me ask you a question, Tim. So I'm not quite sure, of your full history and past. I kind of know what you do now, but in the past, I'm assuming you probably were working in some business where you had a boss?
Yes, I worked in financial IT for 18 years. I was a team leader.
Oh, were you? Okay, well, that's interesting.
And they did actually give us training, believe it or not. It was almost kind of an afterthought, seemingly, but they did have management training. And actually, I found management training very useful. But I know most of the people I did it with found it kind of useless. But most of I actually found it. It's one of those things. The trouble is, everybody thinks they can be a great manager until they're actually a manager, and it is a different skill to be.
Yeah, it's a very different skill. I mean, there's the history is full of salespeople become sales managers and fall flat on their face. Yeah. They're a great salesperson, but they're not a great sales manager. Different skills. To be a great manager, you've got to actually care for your people and listen to them and help them. You can't just kind of dish out instructions to them the whole time. Yeah. So the question I wanted to ask you was, going back to those days when you were a team lead, or even you had a boss. Did you do annual appraisals at any point?
Yeah. Yes.
And what was your view of annual appraisals? I was an employee or as a boss?
Variable. It depends on the boss a lot of the time, and also depends on the company and where. Because I did kind of work. Well, I worked 3 years for one company, and then I joined another company, but it kept merging with other companies all the time. So about 5 companies.
So the expression on your face said it all, which is, there really isn't any boss out there or any employee out there who goes, yes, today's appraisal day. I can't wait. This is going to be fabulous.
Well, I saw this very cynical video on TikTok the other day where somebody was saying appraisals is just an excuse for them to cut your pay or whatever, as in like they'll just find some reason not to give you 5 out of 5.
Mostly they're kind of like something that HR put together because HR processes, you've got to have appraisals, which isn't wrong. It's just the HR appraisals are wrong. What we want to do is we want you to score these people on this, this, and this, and this. These. We've got 20 questions you ask them, and you're going to score them all 1 to 5. And it's like soul destroying. So How to Be a Great Boss explains how to do annual appraisals that really work. And it also has something called quarterly conversations, which are phenomenal. And I've, run quarterly conversations when I was spending all my time as the boss. And they're absolutely mind-bendingly changing your relationship with your team. Really,
have
really
you had feedback from your team members on this?
Have I had feedback from my team members? I have. Yeah.
Your opinion is I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You be devil's advocate as much as you like and stress me out all you want. So I have had feedback, and do you know what? One of the things we do at the start of meetings is we do good news, which is one item of personal good news and one item of business good news. And I've had like the team members say, hey, I had my quarterly conversation last week with Tim. Really enjoyed it. It was great. It was a really great conversation. Got a lot out of it. And, they always look forward to those quarterly conversations. And I've had feedback directly as well on that. So, very much there's like this is great. Really look forward to these. I mean, the first time I did them, it's like I was not too sure what I was doing, and they weren't too sure what was going on. I was, this is strange. We've not done this before. This is a bit weird. But after like, you know, 1 or 2 quarters, they kind of like really get into it. So you have to, it's like riding a bike. You have to keep practicing it.
How are they different from? I mean, how are these quarterly conversations and these appraisals different from the usual? You've given this form of like, is Tim Watson on time? Yes, he was early. Has he got a balanced, symmetrical background on his screen? Well, it's a bit on one side, like that makes rating out of 10 for performance.
Time attendance, yes, no, 1 to 5, blah blah blah.
So how is this book different? Like in terms of what? And is it something that like people can pick up from the book, or is this something they need to practice as well? Like you were kind of saying, it took you time to get to work out.
Yeah, I mean, with any skill, you've got to practice it. Yeah, you know, the basic ideas and concepts behind it all is in the book, and then once you've read it and understood it, you know, you can go and practice it and try it out, or find some other people who've read the book as well and have done it and learn from them. You know, get some tips from a forum or whatever. But yeah, it's like, you know, like with any skill, you've got to go and practice it to really improve on it. The great thing is, though, if you just start, which is the hardest thing, even when you're not great at it, it's still going to be work. It will still work better than doing something else.
Yeah. So, like, going back to how is it different? If somebody reads this, what would you say is the key difference between what this suggests to the normal annual reviews and like team meetings and things that people have in normal businesses?
Well, in terms of the annual appraisal approach that's recommended, it's basically a 1-page form, very simple form, and it focuses on you know, kind of skills in different areas, and it's all about getting the person to talk about, you know, where they're at and where their head's at and what they're going to be able to do in different areas. And it focuses on something we call core values. So you're familiar with the term core values?
Well, yeah, I've heard of it. I would like to know what it's supposed to be. It's like the values of the company, I guess.
Yeah, well, core values is a very misused tool, actually. I mean, core values done properly, most businesses define some core values and they put them on a poster and put them on the wall, put them on the website and forget about them.
Yeah.
As opposed to actively practice them and celebrate them. So that's core values is about defining the culture of the business. You know, the people who are going to be the right people who fit the culture of the business. You define it through core values. So the first part of the appraisals is simply asking the person, you know, how are you doing against core values? How do you rate yourself? You know, where do you feel you really excel with the core values? And have you got anything that you're kind of struggling with? And they'll say, well, this core value I'm brilliant at. This one, you know, kind of doesn't quite make sense to me. I'm not so good at that. And then you ask questions like, okay, that's great. What could you do to be better at it? So it's a much more kind of interactive experience where you know, as a boss, you're not telling them, you know, you're rubbish at this core value. which you know, you may have a perception of that, but you're asking them where they think they're at. And that's kind of the whole approach with the appraisals and the quarterly conversations. There's no scoring 1 to 5, should we say?
Yeah. So the idea is not necessarily, it's actually to appraise rather than to work out who's going to get pay rise or not.
No, pay rises is not part of annual appraisal. Pay rise is a totally separate subject matter. And if you do pay rises as part of appraisals, it's going to make those appraisals kind of very toxic.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Anyway, shall we go on to the next book, which is not by Gino Wickman?
No, it's not. No.
The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni or Lencioni.
Lencioni, yeah. Pat Lencioni, yeah. I don't know. Lencioni, I have seen him speak, and he did say, this is how I say my name, and I don't know if I got it right or not. But so that's the book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. So can I just read out the first couple of paragraphs from the introduction?
You can indeed.
Oh, that'd be nice.
As long as it's not ISBN number 345, whatever.
No, it's not. So Pat starts the book by saying, not finance, not strategy, not technology. It is teamwork that remains the ultimate competitive advantage, both because it's so powerful and so rare. A friend of mine, the founder of a business that grew to $1 billion in annual revenue, best expressed it, the power of teamwork, when he once told me, if you could get all the people in the organization rowing the same direction, you could dominate any industry in any market against any competition at any time.
Yeah.
So that maybe sets the context for what the book's about, teamwork. And it's written as a business fable. So the first two books are kind of like very fact-based, handbook type. And this one's a business fable. So you like a good story, it's written as a nice story, which is quite engaging. Business fable as a business that's suffering some problems on its leadership team. There's some dysfunction. And actually there's dysfunction in many businesses, because when you get strong leaders and you put them together, it doesn't always quite work. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a question of what strongly. I mean, there's different types of strong leaders. There's like people who are very, I can't think of the word, like very rigid, so they can be strong in that regard in some situations. And then there are other people who are strong leaders, as in they're very good at leading, and like different personality types can get on badly as well. So presumably this business fable, like, is it basically five particular things that they talk about? Where's the 5 dysfunctions come from? Is that like...
So the 5 dysfunctions, it's as the fable unfolds, then so the 5 dysfunctions of a team unfold, which is basically the 5 things that, are the core dysfunctions of many teams and many organizations. So shall I tell you what the 5 dysfunctions are?
We'll go on then.
So in the book, he draws them as a pyramid.
Yeah.
And the base of a pyramid is trust, which is vulnerability-based trust. And he says, you've got to have trust. And we're not talking about trust as in, hey, Tim, here's £5. Give it back to me next week, can you?
Yeah.
And I trust you. This is vulnerability-based trust. This is exposing your weaknesses, your concerns, your fears. This is about being open and honest with your work colleagues. And in many business environments, people aren't open and honest. They're very guarded because, they're very fearful that whatever information they let out there, oh my God, you should have seen this screw up I did yesterday. This happened and that happened, and we had this client complaining about that, and blah blah blah. And they go, oh, okay. And the next thing is they've told like half the business. They've gone to the boss and go, did you hear what happened to Tim? Oh my God, you need to sack him. He's an absolute idiot.
Yeah.
How could he make those mistakes? So vulnerability-based trust is about being open and honest. I said I was going to tell you the 5 dysfunctions. So I've started with the first one, which is trust.
Yeah.
And the point is, the next one is conflict. And that's about having healthy conflict. So this is not having raving arguments with your fellows. This is about having hot debate where people are being open and honest with each other about any topic, and people will, they can fight their corner. Hopefully they're going to listen like they're wrong and fight like they're right, which is always a nice thing to do. But you can't have healthy conflict where people are going to have debate and discussion to get to good answers, unless you've got vulnerability-based trust, because people are just not going to be saying what they're really thinking, what's really on their mind. So he draws this pyramid saying you've got to have trust. Once you get trust, that allows healthy conflict. And once you get healthy conflict, then the next one is, then you can have commitment, because people won't commit to something unless they've been heard. Yeah. They may commit to it even if they've been heard and don't agree. So we have a concept which is disagree and commit, but people won't disagree and commit until their thoughts have been heard and they've said everything they want to say about it. And then once they've said it, you have continue to have healthy debate and so on. And you iron it out, and either they go, yeah, that's fine, I get it now, I understand where we're going and why we're going there, or they go, nah, okay, I'm not sure I fully get it. I'm not sure I agree, but I'm willing to commit on this. So it's trust, conflict, commitment. Next one up is accountability. And you can't hold people accountable unless they've committed. I don't know if we'll talk about the next book. It's called A Counterfeit Yes, where people just say yes because it's like the easy thing. If I just say yes, then you're going to get off my case and we can move on and I can get out of here and do whatever. So they give a counterfeit yes, like, yeah, it's fine by me. I'll try my best. I'll try to do that. And if anyone says I'll try, the first thing to do is, what do you mean by try?
Yeah.
You're not really committing, are you? If you're just saying I'm going to try it, it's like, well, I'm going to have a go, but I know I'm going to fail. Yeah. You're not really committing. And so you can't hold people accountable until they've committed. And you can't have commitment until you've had conflict. And you can't have conflict until you've had vulnerability-based trust. And then the final level in the 5 dysfunctions is results, which is you get, if you're getting great results now, that's fantastic. If you're getting great results and you don't have trust, conflict, commitment, and accountability, you're working way harder than you need to work. Yeah. You really don't need to be working as hard as you are to get those results. And if you're getting poor results, it's probably because of a lack of accountability, due to a lack of commitment, due to a lack of healthy conflict, due to a lack of vulnerability-based trust. Yeah. And so the whole fable sort of goes through this and it sorts out some challenges within the team as to where people are going off track and where they're going wrong in these areas. That's basically it.
So does it because it's more like a fable than the how-to guides of the other ones. So maybe the how-to guides would implicitly give some of this. From my sort of cynical former business part, I think getting to that first trust level must be quite hard at an organisation, especially a bigger one. Does it give any kind of tips about how you would do that? And is it even possible if you're in a company of not 100, but not 100,000, because that'd be a huge company, but 1,000 people? There must be a certain element of not wanting to be vulnerable because you know that Bob in accounting will be after your job or something.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Can you do it? Yeah, you can do it. Yeah. I've certainly done it with leadership teams. And, the first 2 books, handbooks with practical tools. This third one is very much more sort of conceptual in the sense of, it says you've got to have vulnerability-based trust. Doesn't really go too deep into how you breed that and get that. Whereas the first 2 books have tools in them that helps do that. So whenever I'm working with leadership teams and I'm working on openness and honesty, so all of the kind of the tools and all of the techniques through implementing the stuff from Traction, How to Be a Great Boss, is about implementing openness and honesty. And actually, in annual sessions, annual planning that I do, then we run through some trust exercises. And these aren't trustfuls.
Yeah.
I'm not saying trustfuls are a bad idea, but for me, trustfuls don't breed vulnerability-based trust. Yeah. So we do exercises to help people get clear as to, what their counterparts think of them and what they think of their counterparts. And it's a fun exercise to do because normally they're a bit like, oh God, this is going to be painful. They're kind of a bit scared by it, and I handhold them through it. And at the end of it, I go, really glad we did that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, shall we go on to the next book, which you already hinted at? Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, which I have actually read.
You've read this one? All right. Well, don't test me on it then. Don't say what's on page 82.
Oh, no, it was a while ago since I've read it. It was recommended before and I actually read it, and it is a good book.
It's very good.
I can't remember. He's like a former FBI investigator, isn't he? Not investigator, negotiator.
Yeah, he's a former hostage negotiator.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a business fable, but it's got lots of little mini stories in it around hostage negotiation situations and what happened and what he learned by it and how he came up with the things he came up with. And it's got some lovely stories about how he went, he'd been hostage negotiating for many years, and, he never had any formal training in negotiation techniques. And he goes like, I think it was Stanford University. He says, I'm going to go to Stanford University and learn how the professionals do it, learn how the academics do it. And he absolutely wiped their backsides. So they did some exercises and he cleaned them out 100% on the exercises in negotiation. They went, what did you just do to us? How did you manage to, get the better of us in that way? Or how did you manage to come out and negotiate from what you wanted? So it's quite fascinating. And it's one of the things in it that resonated for me is the chapter about beware of the no, master the yes.
Yeah.
Beware of the yes, master the no. If I get that round the right way. And the if you remember it, Tim, he sort of talks about, we've all had that telemarketer experience, right, where we pick up the phone, hey there, how are you doing? And when everybody says to me, how are you doing, and I don't know who they are, I absolutely know it's a salesperson to start with.
Yeah.
Because everyone else just gets to the point and they go, how are you doing? Are you having a good day? You go, yeah, fine, thanks. They go, would you like to have cheaper energy? Yes.
Yes.
Would you like to spend no effort getting that cheaper energy? Yes. Would you like to sign up for my Wizzo plan?
No.
Yes. So they kind of take you through, and you feel like they're prey because you are their prey, right? Yeah. They're just taking you through these kind of questions which you're going to have to answer yes to, because otherwise you'd be an idiot if you said no. And Chris Voss's is, their approach to the yes is ask no-based questions, because it gives control to the other party. So it gives control to the person you're negotiating with. So rather than saying, I'm sure you've had this as well, someone rings you up and says, do you have a few minutes? Yeah, go on then. Rather than saying, do you have a few minutes, you ask a no-based question, which is now a bad time to talk? And you go, yes, it is actually. Can we speak in half an hour? Or, no, it's not a bad time. It's great. Let's talk now. Or, rather than saying, do you agree, which is very much a kind of shoehorning people down a route, do you agree? Yeah. And you get a counterfeit yes. They go, yes, I agree. But actually, once I put this phone down or once I walk out the room, I'm going to do the exact opposite.
Yeah, well, as I remember, I mean, one of the things, the whole thing is you want to get to the no rather than just, because as soon as you get to a no, you get to the point where you can actually find out what the problems are, the things they actually want. And
that people start telling you a lot more when you ask no-based questions. So when you say, instead of said, do you agree? Then you say, do you disagree? And they go, yes, I do disagree. And I disagree for this, and this reason.
Yeah.
So you've given them control of the conversation because they sort of said, yes, I disagree. I think we've got some psychological bias that we like to kind of be positive and say yes or something like that. But, and asking, rather than saying, do you want ... you say, are you against ... So as you say, it's exactly that. You get people to express more, and they reveal lots of stuff they're never going to reveal by asking yes, no-based questions.
Yeah,
and there's a whole load of other techniques in the book: labeling, mirroring, accusation audits. It's just fascinating. I mean, I've used the techniques from the book, as for a lot of people I know. It absolutely helps in negotiating.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember too many of them. I need to reread this book. There's another very good book. Funny thing is, I know there's another very good book on negotiation I read, and I can't remember who it was by or what it was. So, it was somebody else recommended another book on negotiation. But I think it's a skill that people really should be learning more, because it's not something that's ever taught anywhere, really.
No. Well, and if it is, it's taught in an academic way, which is you ask yes-based questions and you shoehorn people into submission, rather than trying to be empathetic, understand them, and let them negotiate with themselves. Which is, you've got a whole bit of it about.
The title of the book kind of gives away his particular thing that you don't want to. I mean, it's very easy to say, like, well, should it be an hour or should it be half hour? And say, well, let's agree on 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Very easy to do that. But he's kind of very much like, well, if you want it to be 30 minutes, work out why the other person wants it as an hour and try and you may well be able to get it. Because the trouble with splitting the difference is that nobody's happy.
Exactly that. It's like, hey, I've got some brown shoes and some black shoes. I know, let's split the difference, but let's wear one black one and one brown one.
Yeah. It's a solution that nobody likes. And
no one kind of wins out of it. And negotiations are multifaceted, as in it, you're not just negotiating about price, you're negotiating about conditions, terms, about timing. So time's a big part of any negotiation as well. So there's lots of different aspects to negotiate. And usually he talks about the black swan, which is the hidden fact that you don't know anything about. And once you understand that fact and you get them to reveal that fact, suddenly everything falls into place because you know why they're negotiating, what they're negotiating. And you can't really, have a good conversation around it until you understand what the black swan is.
Yeah. Well, often, like, people's actions seem totally mad, but from their perspective, it isn't mad. And it's just because you don't understand, as I say, sometimes there's a black swan thing that indicates exactly why that you just don't understand the person you're negotiating with enough. It is a really good book, actually.
I've so far the books we've talked about, I've read them all multiple times.
Yeah. Okay, shall we go on to the final book then?
Absolutely.
She's Turn the Ship Around by David Marque.
Yeah. So that's the book. And again, it's story based. It's not a fable, but it's got lots of stories in it. And the theme of it is about how he was put in charge of a nuclear submarine. So he's a US captain, Navy captain, and he was put in charge of a nuclear submarine that he knew very little about. He had like 6 months to learn this submarine, when normally you need like 2 years or something.
Yeah.
And he kind of realized that he was a problem. And this was the Santa Fe in America, I think, was a submarine. And this was like the worst performing submarine in the fleet. It had the worst reputation in terms of being operational on time and performing exercises successfully. And he turned it around from being the worst submarine to the best submarine in the fleet. Yeah. And it's really a masterclass in delegation, because he had this kind of moment where he gave the crew a command to do something that they simply couldn't do. It was impossible for them to do this command. And rather than saying it can't be done, they tried to do it. And he went, why did the crew try to do it? Do you know what? I'm the problem here. I gave a command which I thought, made sense. And they didn't tell me that I was talking absolute rubbish. I'm the problem. How can that be happening? And so he changes everything around. And you can imagine kind of the military. I've never been in the military, but the military is very command control based.
Yeah.
It's like, right, dive 300 feet. They're left 2 rudders or whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. The captain is barking out commands and expecting the crew to react and deliver on these commands. But when the captain doesn't actually know what the commands are or make sense of the commands, then it all goes horribly wrong, which is, the experience he had, that he tried to do something that wasn't possible. And the crew kind of had to go at doing it, went, actually, we can't do that. It's not possible in the end, they decided. And his answer to this was teaching people, rather than having people disempowered and asking questions like, what should I do about the blah, blah, blah? He kind of trained people to start to take the initiative and be leaders rather than followers, which was the problem, that they were all, just following him. Whatever I say, whatever rubbish comes out of my mouth, I'm going to do it because you're the captain. They're just following blindly what he said, and he taught them to be leaders. And rather than saying, what should I do about blah, 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 he started teaching them to say, I intend to dive the submarine. We're in the water we own. The depth is 400 feet. All men are below. The ship is rigged to dive. and the team is certified, the watch team certified. And he could just say, go ahead and dive then, rather than saying, right, hey, crew, are we in water we own? Are we rigged for diving? Yes, sir. Has the watch crew been certified? Yes, sir. Great, go and dive. He'd ask them to come forwards with what it is and use I intend to, because that is empowering them to make the decision, to make the proposition as to what they're going to do. I intend to, dive the machine because blah, 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 blah. These are the reasons why it's safe to do this. And if they missed something out, then the captain might say, are we in water we own?
Yeah.
And he came to a point where instead of saying, are we in water we own? He started asking, what do you think I'm thinking right now? And they'd scratch their heads and go, are we in water we own? That's right. That's what I'm thinking. So he kind of trained them to be leaders through this process, elevating them, getting them to see the bigger picture. It's again, fascinating read. I mean, and the stories in it are, it's a bit of a cliffhanger because he has to get this submarine turned around and ready for exercises in a impossibly short period of time. So it's a bit of a cliffhanger because you're like, does he do it? Does he do it? Does he do it? So you're reading it like that. It's So
we'll have to read the book to find out, or the viewers will. So
absolutely, yeah.
So you kind of liked it. You like this book because it's an example in real life of how decent management can change organisations.
Yeah, so it's about leadership. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's about leadership and delegation, which is, something that I spend a lot of time helping people improve at. So when there's some great stories and examples of people who've shown what they've done and they've documented it in a book, it's like, this is great. I can say to people, hey, go and read that book. I think you'll find it helpful.
Yeah. Okay, well, I told you before the interview started and you already told me what answer you can give, but maybe it's changed. And I'm also going to rephrase the question in a different way to make it more. Of these 5 books, let's say you're faced with somebody and you need to give them a book. What would be your flow diagram, logical sequence to work out which book to give them? I'm guessing it'll probably be the first one all the time, but if not, then what would be your, like, how would you work out which book to give them? What kind of questions would you ask them? And what would your logic process be?
What would be my logic process? So most of the time, the book that I give is Traction, and I actually do give the book Traction to people. I mean, it's one of the things I do. If someone comes to me and they need some help, I'll kind of say, here's a copy of Traction, read that. But I will ask some questions at times and sort of understand where their challenge is. And sometimes I will recommend a different book, which I think is going to help them more. It's like, this book's going to help you. Maybe they're, in sales and they're struggling with negotiation or something, and go, all right, are you asking yes-based questions? Yes, because that's what we were taught to do. Okay, go and read, this chapter 8 out of this book here. This is going to help you. So I will ask questions, get curious and understand where people's challenges are, and potentially recommend something other than Traction where it makes more sense for their particular challenge.
Yeah.
But if you want kind of a one-size-fits-all approach, then Traction's my go-to book for most entrepreneurial leaders.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what you do in the world outside, because we had a great conversation about books and management books and things in general, weren't we? So what do you like? You are a professional EOS implementer, as it says on your thing. So we kind of talked about this a little bit in terms of Traction, but what do you provide companies or individuals, and how can people work with you? And what do you do? I mean, do you go into companies and work with them, or do you set up calls and train people? What kind of things do you do?
So nice question. Thanks for asking. I work with leadership teams, and I help people get more of what they want from their business by helping them to get clear on vision, traction, healthy, And I do that by helping them implement a simple set of practical tools called EOS tools. And I implement those into the business, or help them implement those into the business to the point where they can stand on their own 2 feet and run their business more successfully. It's all about execution in the business. So that's basically what I do. And it's, my kind of role within that process is 3 things. One is teaching. Yeah. So it's teaching the tools, explaining how to use the tools in traction. The second thing I do is facilitation. 9 times out of 10, all of the knowledge that they need is kind of in the room of the leaders. They know what they need to know most of the time, but you just got to get them on the same page with their answer so they can go and execute on it. Because otherwise you find that there's like 3 different answers in the room, and without someone making sure on the same page, they all go and execute their own answer rather than a combined answer that they can execute as a team. Because as Patrick Lencioni said, teamwork is the ultimate differentiating advantage.
Yeah.
Being a great team. So, and the third thing I do is I help coach. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurial businesses, and I see kind of the kinks and problems that those businesses have. And, like with a sports match, when someone's running around kicking the ball on the field, they can't necessarily see the picture from way back that the coach is seeing. And the coach kind of has a few suggestions as to what they should be doing, or asks a few questions, I should probably say, about, where they could change their methods. So I coach this team as well when needed. So I teach, facilitate, and coach, working with leadership teams.
And you were saying it was probably for bigger businesses. Well, not
10-person to 250-person businesses. Yeah.
But are there any kind of businesses that this wouldn't work very well, or any industries? And are there any industries where it works really well with, or will you give any industry a go?
Oh no, that's a nice question. So yeah, it's really for businesses 10 persons and above, because it's all about harmonizing the human energy in the business. And if you've got a 3-person business, you probably haven't got a problem with harmonizing the human energy, because you're just kind of like 3 people who know each other inside out and back to front, upside down. It's really as you get to kind of 10 that things start to deteriorate and clutter builds up and complexity builds up, and you need something a bit more structured to go on to run that business. So it's like 10 to 250-person businesses. You asked about industry sector. And one of the nice things about the framework within Traction is it's totally industry agnostic. Yeah. And I said, like, there's 21,000 businesses running on EOS, and those are like, SaaS companies, charities, marketing agencies, production businesses, accountancies, you name it. It's worked. It's been proven to work in just about any sector. So I'll work with any business, and I do work with any business that is suffering frustrations and the challenges that are quite common in entrepreneurial businesses, because I can solve that problem for them. And I don't have to be an expert in the industry. I don't teach people what strategy to follow. I'm not a consultant. So I don't tell people this is a strategy you should be following. I just help them get better at following the strategy that they've decided they should follow.
Okay. And how can people, if somebody's watching this or listening to this somewhere, or sees this on the clip on social media, how can people get in touch with you?
So one way would be to Google Tim Watson EOS, and you'll find a landing page with my name and contact details on. Another way would be to email tim.watson@eosworldwide.com. And that will get to me. Or look me up on LinkedIn and connect.
Okay, well, it's been great to have you on the show, and this is where I'm going to press loads of buttons and hope that the stream ends. So thanks for anybody watching on Amazon, anybody watching on YouTube in the future, anybody listening to the podcast version of this in the future. Thank you all for listening, watching, and otherwise interacting with the show.
All right, thank you very much for having me, Tim, and I hope some of you go and read some of those books, or reach out to me and I'll tell you more about them.
Yeah, well, I might read some of these books eventually. Once I go through my backlog of all the other hundreds of books I've got, previous interviews. But I will get there.
Thank you very much.